Jake had always liked his quiet life. At 32, he worked from home designing websites and logos for small businesses. His apartment wasn't fancy, but it was his space. 2 bedrooms, a decent kitchen, and most importantly, no drama from roommates or girlfriends. That Tuesday evening changed everything with a single phone call. "Hey, big brother, I need a huge favor," his younger sister Lisa said, her voice carrying that tone he knew meant trouble. Jake paused his video game and sighed. "What kind of favor?" "My friend from college needs a place to stay for maybe a week. She just moved to the city and her apartment isn't ready yet. Could she crash at your place? Please?" Jake rubbed his forehead. He barely remembered Lisa's college. Friends. They were all young and loud when they visited for holidays. The last thing he wanted was some party girl disrupting his peaceful routine. "Lisa, I don't know. I've got a big project deadline coming up." "Come on, Jake, she's not like that anymore. She's really quiet now, going through a tough time. She won't bother you at all, I promise." After 15 minutes of Lisa's pleading, Jake finally gave in. "Fine, but just 1 week, okay?" "You're the best. She'll be there tomorrow evening." The next day, Jake spent his morning cleaning the spare bedroom and wondering what he'd gotten himself into. He stocked the fridge with extra food and made sure there were clean towels in the bathroom. By evening, he was second-guessing his decision completely. The knock on his door came at 7:30. Jake opened it expecting to see the bubbly college girl he vaguely remembered from family gatherings 3 years ago. Instead, he found someone completely different. She stood in the hallway with just one small suitcase, looking tired but composed. Her dark hair was shorter now, and there was something in her eyes that hadn't been there before. Something that spoke of recent pain. "Hi, Jake, I'm Maya. Thank you so much for letting me stay. I know this is really awkward." Her voice was softer than he remembered. More careful. Jake stepped aside to let her in. "Don't worry about it. Lisa says you're apartment hunting?" "Yeah, I found a place, but it won't be ready until next week. Maybe sooner if I'm lucky." She looked around his living room with genuine appreciation. "This is really nice, very peaceful." Jake showed her to the spare room, explaining where everything was. Maya nodded politely, asking only the necessary questions. She seemed determined to take up as little space as possible. "I usually eat around 7, Jake said, standing awkwardly in her doorway. "You're welcome to join me, or there's stuff in the fridge if you prefer to eat separately. If it's not too much trouble, eating together would be nice. I can cook tomorrow night to say thank you." After Maya settled in, Jake ordered pizza for dinner. They sat at his small dining table and the conversation started hesitantly. "So Lisa says you're working at the art museum now?" Jake asked. Maya's face lit up slightly. "Yeah, I'm helping organize their new modern art section. It's exactly what I studied for finally." "That sounds perfect for you. I remember you always carrying those art books around during college." "You remember that?" Maya seemed surprised. "Well, they were pretty hard to miss. Some of those books were bigger than you were." Maya laughed, and Jake felt something shift in the room's atmosphere. Her laugh was warm and genuine, nothing like the nervous energy he'd expected. As they ate, Maya explained how she'd moved across the country for a fresh start. She didn't give details, but Jake could tell there was a story behind her decision. Something about the way she looked down when talking about her previous life made him not want to push for more information. "What about you?" Maya asked. "Lisa says you're some kind of design genius now." Jake nearly choked on his pizza. "Genius? Hardly. I just make websites and business cards. Nothing fancy. Don't be modest. I looked up your work online before coming here. That restaurant website you did last month was incredible. The way you made the food photos work with the color scheme was really smart." Jake stared at her. "You researched my work?" Maya blushed. "Sorry, that probably sounds creepy. I just wanted to know who I'd be staying with. But honestly, your portfolio is impressive. You have a real eye for visual storytelling. No one had ever analyzed his work like that before. Most clients just wanted their logos bigger and their text brighter." Hearing Maya talk about visual storytelling made his chest feel warm in an unexpected way. They spent the next hour talking about design, art, and creativity. Maya had opinions about everything from color theory to typography, and she challenged Jake's ideas in ways that made him think differently about his own work. When Maya excused herself to shower and get ready for bed, Jake found himself disappointed that the evening was ending. He cleaned up the kitchen slowly, replaying their conversation in his mind. From his bedroom, he could hear the soft sounds of Maya moving around the apartment, the shower running, her quiet footsteps in the hallway, the gentle click of her door closing. Jake lay in bed staring at the ceiling, trying to understand why having someone else in his space felt so different than he'd expected. Maya wasn't disrupting his peace. If anything, her presence made the apartment feel more alive somehow. He'd been living alone for 2 years, ever since his divorce was finalized. The silence had become his comfort zone. But tonight, knowing someone else was just down the hall, didn't feel intrusive. It felt surprisingly nice. As Jake drifted off to sleep, he found himself curious about what tomorrow would bring. For the first time in months, he was actually looking forward to morning coffee with another person. Little did he know that Maya was lying awake in the spare room, thinking similar thoughts. She'd expected to feel like an unwelcome burden in Jake's home. Instead, she felt safer and more relaxed than she had in months. The quiet man who'd opened his door to help a stranger was nothing like she'd remembered. 3 years ago, he'd seemed serious and distant at family gatherings. Tonight, she'd discovered someone thoughtful, creative, and surprisingly easy to talk to. Maya pulled the blanket up to her chin and smiled in the darkness. Maybe this week wouldn't be so difficult after all. Neither of them could have predicted how much their lives were about to change. Sometimes the most important moments begin with the simplest gestures: a sister asking for help, a door opened to a friend in need, a shared pizza dinner that becomes something more. The morning would bring new discoveries, and with each passing day, the careful distance they'd both constructed around their hearts would slowly begin to crumble. 3 days later, Jake's morning routine had completely changed. Instead of drinking coffee alone while checking emails, he found himself looking forward to Maya's soft footsteps in the hallway. She was an early riser, always up before him, quietly, making coffee in the kitchen. The first morning, Jake had felt awkward joining her. By the third day, it felt like the most natural thing in the world. "Good morning," Maya said, handing him a perfectly made cup of coffee. She'd somehow figured out exactly how he liked it without asking. "You don't have to make my coffee every day," Jake said, though he secretly hoped she'd continue. "I like having someone to make coffee for," Maya replied, curling up in the chair across from him. "It's been a while since I had that." Jake wanted to ask about her past, but something in her tone told him not to push. Instead, they talked about their plans for the day. Maya would work from his living room, handling museum business on her laptop, while Jake retreated to his home office for client calls. But Jake found himself making excuses to leave his office more often. Need more coffee, looking for a pen, checking if Maya needed anything. Each time he discovered her completely absorbed in her work, typing quickly or talking enthusiastically on video calls about art installations and exhibition plans. Watching Maya work fascinated him. She had this energy when discussing art that made her whole face light up. Her hands moved expressively as she explained concepts to museum colleagues, and Jake found himself pausing his own work just to listen to her voice through the thin walls. "You're really passionate about your job," he mentioned during their lunch break. "Art has always been my escape," Maya said, stirring her soup thoughtfully. "When everything else in life gets complicated, art makes sense. Colors don't lie. Shapes don't break promises." The way she said it made Jake's chest tighten. Someone had clearly broken important promises to her. "Is that why you moved here? To escape complications?" Maya was quiet for a long moment. "My life back home became impossible to live. Sometimes starting over somewhere new is the only option." Jake nodded, understanding more than she knew. "I went through something similar 2 years ago. Different situation, but I know that feeling of needing to rebuild everything. Lisa mentioned you were married before." "Yeah, turned out we wanted completely different lives. She wanted the big house, the fancy car, the social status. I just wanted someone who actually enjoyed spending time with me. Jake surprised himself by sharing so much. What about you? I thought I was going to marry someone who loved me. Turns out he loved the idea of me, but not the real me, and definitely not enough to be faithful. The words hung in the air between them. Jake felt anger rise in his chest at the thought of someone hurting Maya like that. I'm sorry, that's awful. It's okay. Well, it's not okay, but it's over now. I'm learning to trust my own judgment again. That evening, Maya insisted on cooking dinner as promised. Jake sat at the kitchen counter, supposedly working on his laptop, but really just watching her move around his kitchen with surprising familiarity. You cook like someone who actually enjoys it, Jake observed. My grandmother taught me. She always said cooking for people you care about is one of life's greatest pleasures. Maya paused, seeming to realize what she'd said. Not that I'm saying, I just enjoy cooking, Jake smiled. I care about you too. As a friend, You're not just Lisa's friend crashing here anymore. Something shifted in Maya's expression. She looked at him for a moment longer than necessary before turning back to the stove. Dinner was incredible. Maya had somehow turned basic ingredients from Jake's sparse pantry into something that tasted like it came from an expensive restaurant. This is amazing, Jake said between bites. I usually live on takeout and frozen meals. I can tell from your refrigerator, Maya laughed. Tomorrow I'm going grocery shopping and teaching you to cook at least 3 real meals. You don't have to do that. I want to. Besides, I'll probably find an apartment soon, and I'd feel better knowing you won't starve after I leave. The mention of Maya leaving made Jake's stomach drop unexpectedly. He'd gotten used to her presence faster than he thought possible. The apartment would feel empty without her morning coffee routine and evening conversations. After dinner, they moved to the couch to watch a movie. Maya curled up on one end while Jake sat on the other, but as the night progressed, they somehow ended up closer together. When Maya laughed at a funny scene, she unconsciously reached over and touched Jake's arm. When Jake made a comment about the plot, he found himself turning toward her, close enough to smell her shampoo. Neither acknowledged the growing closeness, but both felt it. I should probably head to bed, Maya said when the credits rolled, though she made no move to get up. Yeah, me too, Jake replied, also not moving. They sat in comfortable silence for another few minutes, the space between them charged with unspoken possibility. Finally, Maya stood up. Thank you for another lovely day, Jake. I know I keep saying it, but having a safe place to land means more than you know. You don't have to keep thanking me. I like having you here. Maya paused at the hallway entrance. I like being here too. More than I probably should. After she disappeared into her room, Jake sat alone on the couch replaying the evening in his mind. The casual touches, the lingering looks, the way conversation flowed so easily between them. He was developing feelings for Maya, real feelings that went far beyond simple attraction or loneliness. But she was healing from betrayal, staying temporarily in his home, and was his sister's best friend. Every rational part of his mind listed reasons why pursuing anything romantic would be complicated and potentially disastrous. Meanwhile, Maya lay in bed staring at the ceiling, fighting similar thoughts. Jake was kind, funny, talented, and made her feel safe in a way she'd forgotten was possible. But she'd just escaped one relationship disaster. Getting involved with someone new, especially someone connected to her support system, seemed like asking for trouble. Yet she couldn't deny the way her heart sped up when Jake smiled at her, or how natural it felt to take care of him by making coffee and cooking dinner. For the first time in months, she felt genuinely happy. Both of them fell asleep wondering what would happen if they stopped overthinking and started listening to their hearts instead. Tomorrow would bring new challenges to their carefully maintained boundaries, and neither was prepared for how quickly things could change when 2 lonely people finally find someone who understands them. A week had passed since Maya arrived, and Jake's world had quietly transformed. His apartment felt warmer, his days had rhythm and purpose, and for the first time in years, he looked forward to coming home each evening. That Friday started like any other day. Maya made coffee while Jake checked his emails. They shared breakfast and talked about weekend plans. Maya mentioned she might visit a few potential apartments, and Jake tried to hide his disappointment at the reminder that this arrangement was temporary. Around noon, Maya's phone rang. Jake was in his office but could hear her voice change as she answered. The cheerful tone she'd maintained all week suddenly became flat and careful. "Hello, Mom." "Yes, I got your message." Jake tried to focus on his work, but Maya's voice carried through the thin walls. Whatever her mother was telling her was clearly upsetting. Maya's responses became shorter, more strained. "When is it? Next weekend?" "I see." There was a long pause. "No, I won't be coming home for it. I have work commitments here." Another pause, longer this time. "Mom, I can't discuss this right now. I'll call you later." When the call ended, Jake heard nothing but silence from the living room. He waited a few minutes before checking on her. He found Maya sitting on the couch, staring at her phone with an expression he'd never seen before. She looked completely defeated. "Everything okay?" Jake asked gently. Maya looked up at him and he could see tears threatening in her eyes. "My ex is getting married. Next weekend. To the woman he was cheating with." Jake felt anger surge through him on Maya's behalf. "I'm sorry, that must be really hard to hear. The worst part is that my whole family will be there. They all loved him. Some of them probably still think I should have tried harder to work things out." Maya's voice cracked slightly. "My mom keeps asking when I'm coming home, like I should want to watch him marry someone else." Without thinking, Jake sat down next to her on the couch. "You don't have to go anywhere you don't want to go, and you definitely don't have to watch that." "I know. Logically, I know that. But it still hurts. 18 months ago, I thought that would be my wedding. I had the dress picked out, the venue booked. I was planning our future while he was planning his with someone else." A tear finally escaped, rolling down her cheek. Jake reached over and gently wiped it away. "He's an idiot," Jake said firmly. "Anyone who could cheat on you doesn't deserve 5 minutes of your time, let alone your tears." Maya looked at him, something shifting in her expression. "How do you do that?" "Do what?" "Make me feel like maybe I'm worth something after all." Jake's heart clenched. "Maya, you're worth everything. Anyone with eyes can see that." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, Jake's presence steady and calming beside her. Maya had stopped crying, but the emotional weight of the phone call still pressed down on her. "I should get back to work," Maya finally said, though she made no move to get up. "Take the afternoon off. Let's do something to get your mind off this." "Like what?" Jake thought for a moment. "Have you seen any of the city yet? Actually seen it, not just apartment hunting?" Maya shook her head. "Come on. I'm taking you on a proper tour." They spent the afternoon walking through downtown, visiting Jake's favorite coffee shops and bookstores. Maya's mood gradually improved as they explored, and by evening she was laughing again at Jake's stories about the city's quirky neighborhoods. "Thank you," Maya said as they walked back to the apartment. "I needed this more than I realized. Anytime. That's what friends are for." Maya paused on the sidewalk. "Is that what we are? Friends?" The question hung between them, loaded with implications neither had been willing to address directly. "I don't know," Jake answered honestly. "What do you think we are?" Before Maya could answer, her phone buzzed with a text message. She glanced at it and her face fell again. "It's from my sister. Pictures from his engagement party last month. She thought I should know how happy he looks." Jake saw the photos over Maya's shoulder. Her ex-fiancé looked exactly like the kind of guy Jake had imagined. Smooth, confident, probably never doubted his own charm. The woman beside him was everything Maya wasn't. Blonde, bubbly, the kind of person who probably never had a complicated thought in her life. "I need to not think about this anymore," Maya said suddenly. "I need to stop giving him space in my head." That evening they ordered Chinese food and watched comedies on Jake's couch. Maya seemed determined to push away the sadness from earlier, laughing louder than necessary at every joke, drinking wine faster than usual. I should go to bed, Maya said around 11, but she was curled up against Jake's side and showed no signs of moving. You can stay here if you want, Jake said softly. On the couch, I mean, if you don't want to be alone. Maya looked up at him, their faces suddenly very close. Jake? Yeah? What if I don't want to stay on the couch? The question hit Jake like electricity. Maya's eyes were serious now, searching his face for an answer. Maya, you've had a really emotional day, and you've been drinking. I don't want you to do anything you'll regret tomorrow. What if I won't regret it? What if this is the first thing I've wanted in months that has nothing to do with my past? Jake's resolve was weakening. Maya was warm against his side, looking at him like he was exactly what she needed, but his protective instincts were stronger than his desire. Let's talk about this tomorrow when you're sure it's what you really want. Maya nodded slowly, disappointment flickering across her face. You're probably right. I should go to bed. She started to get up, then paused. Jake, will you sit with me for a few minutes, just until I fall asleep? I really don't want to be alone with my thoughts right now. Jake couldn't refuse that request. He followed her to her room and sat in the chair beside her bed while she changed into pajamas in the bathroom. When Maya came out, she looked young and vulnerable in an oversized t-shirt and shorts. She climbed into bed and pulled the covers up to her chin. Thank you for taking care of me today, she said quietly. You don't need to thank me. Yes, I do. You could have let me fall apart and locked yourself in your office until I pulled myself together. Instead, you dropped everything to make sure I was okay. Jake watched her eyes grow heavy with exhaustion and emotion. Within minutes, her breathing became slow and steady. But Jake didn't leave. He sat in that chair for another hour, watching Maya sleep peacefully for the first time since she'd arrived. Her face was relaxed, free from the careful control she maintained while awake. Something had changed between them that day. The careful boundaries they'd maintained were starting to crack, and Jake wasn't sure either of them had the strength to rebuild them. As he finally headed to his own room, Jake realized that Maya wasn't just his temporary houseguest anymore. She'd become someone he cared about deeply, someone he wanted to protect and comfort and make happy. The question was, what were they going to do about it? Jake woke up to the sound of the coffee maker running, but something felt different. The usual warmth and anticipation he'd grown to associate with morning was replaced by a strange tension in the air. He found Maya in the kitchen, fully dressed in jeans and a sweater despite the early hour. She was moving with deliberate precision, making coffee like it was a task to complete rather than a morning ritual to enjoy. Good morning, Jake said carefully, trying to read her mood. Morning, Maya replied without looking at him. She handed him a cup of coffee, but their usual easy interaction felt strained and formal. They sat at the table in uncomfortable silence. Maya stared at her coffee while Jake searched for something to say that might bridge the awkward gap between them. About last night, Jake began. Last night was a mistake, Maya said quickly, cutting him off. I wasn't thinking clearly. I was emotional and confused, and I put you in an impossible position. I'm sorry. Jake felt like she'd thrown cold water on him. Maya, you don't need to apologize for having feelings. Yes, I do. Maya finally looked at him, and Jake could see the wall she'd rebuilt overnight. You were being kind to someone having a breakdown, and I misread the situation. It won't happen again. What if I don't want it to be a mistake? Jake asked quietly. Maya's composure cracked slightly. Jake, please don't make this harder than it already is. I'm not trying to make anything hard. I'm trying to be honest about what's happening between us. Nothing is happening between us, Maya said, but her voice lacked conviction. I'm your sister's friend who needed a place to stay, that's all. Jake studied her face, seeing the conflict she was trying to hide. Is that really what you think this is? Maya stood up abruptly. I should get to work. The museum has a conference. Call this morning. She retreated to the living room with her laptop, effectively ending their conversation. Jake sat alone at the kitchen table, feeling like the easy connection they'd built over the past week had been shattered overnight. The day stretched on with both of them working in different rooms, maintaining careful distance. When Lisa called that afternoon to check on how things were going, Jake struggled to sound normal. "Everything's fine," he told his sister. "Maya's great. Very easy house guest. I'm so glad you two are getting along. I was worried it might be awkward." If only she knew how awkward it had become, Jake thought. Maya's apartment search intensified over the next few days. She spent hours on the phone with landlords and made appointments to view places across the city. The message was clear. She wanted to leave as soon as possible. Jake threw himself into his work, taking on extra projects to avoid the growing tension in his own home. But he couldn't stop noticing the small things about Maya that had become part of his daily routine. The way she hummed softly while making coffee, how she curled up in the corner of his couch with her laptop, the sound of her quiet laughter during phone calls with museum colleagues. 3 days of careful politeness passed before Jake couldn't take it anymore. He found Maya on the balcony one evening, talking on the phone about lease agreements and deposit requirements. When she finished her call, Jake sat down beside her without asking permission. "We need to talk," he said. "Jake, I told you." "No, you told me what you think you should feel. But you haven't told me what you actually feel." Maya was quiet for a long moment, looking out at the city lights. "What I feel doesn't matter. This situation is too complicated." "Why? Because of Lisa? Because you're staying here temporarily? Because you just got out of a relationship?" "All of those reasons," Maya said. "Plus the fact that I have terrible judgment when it comes to men. I thought I knew my ex completely, and look how that turned out." Jake turned to face her fully. "I'm not him, Maya. I know you're not. That's what makes this so scary." Maya's voice was barely above a whisper. "With him, I was always trying to be what he wanted. With you, I feel like myself. Like the person I was before everything got so complicated. Then why are you running away?" Maya finally looked at him, and Jake could see tears threatening in her eyes. "Because caring about someone means they can hurt you, and I'm not sure I can survive being hurt like that again." Jake's heart ached for her. "Maya, not everyone is going to hurt you. Some people are worth the risk." "How do you know? How does anyone know?" "You don't. That's what makes it brave." They sat in silence for several minutes, the weight of unspoken feelings hanging between them. Finally, Maya spoke again. "I found an apartment today. I can move in this weekend." Jake felt his stomach drop. "That's fast." "The landlord had a cancellation. It's a good opportunity." "Is that the only reason you're taking it?" Maya didn't answer, which was answer enough. That night, Jake lay awake thinking about everything that had happened since Maya arrived. In just over a week, she'd changed his entire world. His quiet, predictable life had become something richer and more meaningful. The thought of going back to eating dinner alone and making coffee for one person felt unbearably lonely. Meanwhile, Maya packed her things slowly, trying to memorize every detail of the room that had become her sanctuary. Jake's apartment had been the first place in months where she'd felt truly safe and happy. Leaving felt like giving up something precious, but staying felt like risking her heart all over again. The next morning, their coffee ritual resumed, but with the knowledge that it was ending soon. Every shared glance carried extra weight. Every casual touch felt significant. "I want you to know," Jake said as Maya washed her coffee cup, "having you here this week has been the best week I've had in a long time." Maya's hands stilled in the soapy water. "Jake, please don't. I'm not trying to change your mind. I'm just telling you the truth. You made my life better just by being in it." Maya turned around, tears finally spilling over. "You made my life better too. That's why I have to go." "That doesn't make any sense." "It makes perfect sense to me. The last time I felt this happy with someone, it ended with my whole world falling apart. I can't go through that again." Jake stepped closer to her. "What if it doesn't fall apart? What if this time is different? What if it's not?" Maya whispered. "What if I'm just setting myself up for another disaster?" Jake wanted to promise her that everything would be okay, that he would never hurt her the way her ex had. But he understood that promises felt meaningless to someone who'd had their trust shattered. Instead, he said, "What if you're giving up? Something real because you're afraid of something that might never happen?" Maya looked at him for a long moment, her heart clearly torn between hope and fear. "I wish I could be as brave as you think I should be." "You are brave. You moved across the country to start over. You're rebuilding your whole life. That takes incredible courage. Then why does this feel so impossible?" "Because it matters," Jake said simply. "When something really matters, it's always scary." Maya wiped her tears with the back of her hand. "I need to finish packing. The movers come tomorrow morning." As she walked away, Jake realized that tomorrow would bring the end of the most meaningful week he'd experienced in years. Unless something changed, Maya would walk out of his life just as unexpectedly as she'd entered it. But maybe, just maybe, there was still time for one of them to be brave enough to fight for what they'd found together. Moving day arrived with gray clouds and the promise of rain. Jake woke up to an empty kitchen for the first time in over a week, and the silence felt overwhelming. Maya was already dressed and organizing her belongings in the living room. Her single suitcase had somehow multiplied into several boxes and bags. She'd accumulated pieces of Jake's life without either of them realizing it. "The movers should be here in an hour," Maya said without looking up from her packing. Jake poured himself coffee, noticing that Maya had still made enough for 2 people out of habit. The small gesture made his chest tight with emotion. "I could help you get settled in the new place," Jake offered. "That's kind, but I think a clean break might be better for both of us." The phrase clean break hit Jake like a physical blow. After everything they'd shared, Maya was treating their connection like something that needed to be severed. "Maya, can we please talk about this honestly? Just once?" Maya finally looked at him, and Jake could see the exhaustion in her eyes. She'd clearly spent the night wrestling with the same emotions that had kept him awake. "What do you want me to say, Jake? That this week meant something to me?" "It did. That leaving feels like I'm tearing my heart out." "It does. But that doesn't change the fact that this is the smart thing to do." "Since when is the smart thing always the right thing?" Before Maya could answer, her phone rang. She glanced at the caller ID and her face fell. "It's my mom again. I should take this." Jake watched Maya's side of the conversation with growing concern. Her mother's voice was loud enough that he could hear bits and pieces from across the room. "No, Mom. I told you I'm not coming home for the wedding. Because I have a new life here. Yes, I know the whole family will be there." Maya's responses became shorter and more strained as the call progressed. Finally, she said, "I have to go. The movers are here," and hung up, even though no movers had arrived yet. "Everything okay?" Jake asked. Maya sat down heavily on the couch. "My family thinks I'm being ridiculous. They want me to come home, make peace with my ex, and act like nothing happened. They keep saying I'm throwing away my whole life over a misunderstanding." "A misunderstanding? He cheated on you?" "They think I should have forgiven him and worked it out. They're saying I'm running away from my problems instead of facing them." Jake sat down beside her. "Is that what you think you're doing? Running away?" Maya was quiet for a long moment. "Maybe, but sometimes running away is the only way to save yourself. And sometimes," Jake said gently, "running away means leaving behind the best thing that ever happened to you." Maya looked at him with tears in her eyes. "How do I know the difference?" "I think you already do. Deep down, I think you know exactly what you want. You're just afraid to want it." The real movers arrived before Maya could respond, filling the apartment with boxes and activity. Jake watched helplessly as Maya's belongings were loaded into a truck, taking with them all evidence that she'd ever been part of his life. When the movers left, Maya stood in the empty living room with her purse and a small overnight bag. The apartment felt hollowed out, missing something essential. "I guess this is it," Maya said. Jake wanted to say something profound, something that would change her mind or at least let her know what she meant to him. Instead, he said, "I'm going to miss you. I'm going to miss you too." They hugged goodbye, and Jake memorized everything about that moment. The way Maya felt in his arms, the scent of her shampoo, the way she held on just a little longer than necessary. After Maya left, Jake wandered through his apartment in a daze. Every room reminded him of her. The kitchen where she'd made coffee every morning. The couch where they'd shared so many conversations. The spare bedroom that now felt like a monument to lost possibilities. 3 days passed in a blur of work and silence. Jake's routine felt mechanical and empty. He ordered takeout for every meal and barely spoke to anyone except clients. On Wednesday evening, Lisa called. "How are you handling the empty nest?" she asked cheerfully. "Fine," Jake lied. "It's nice, having my space back." "That's weird. Maya said the exact same thing when I talked to her yesterday. You'd think at least one of you would admit you miss the company." Jake's heart jumped. "You talked to Maya? How is she?" "Honestly, she sounds terrible. Really sad and distracted. I thought maybe adjusting to a new place was harder than she expected. But now I'm wondering if something else is going on." After Lisa hung up, Jake couldn't stop thinking about their conversation. If Maya was as miserable as he was, maybe they were both making a terrible mistake. That evening, Jake found himself standing outside Maya's new apartment building with a bag of Chinese takeout and no clear plan. He almost turned around 3 times before finally calling her. "Jake, is everything okay? I'm downstairs, can I come up? I brought dinner." There was a long pause. "Jake, we agreed." "I know what we agreed, but I think we were both wrong." Another pause. Apartment 4B. Maya's new place was small and sterile, filled with boxes she clearly hadn't had the energy to unpack. She looked exhausted and sad, confirming Lisa's assessment. "The apartment's nice," Jake said, though it felt nothing like a home. "It's fine, quiet, safe." Maya's voice was flat, devoid of the warmth he'd grown to love. They ate dinner mostly in silence, both of them aware that this visit was either a terrible idea or the best decision they'd made in days. "Maya," Jake said finally, "I need to tell you something and I need you to listen without interrupting." Maya nodded, setting down her chopsticks. "I know you're scared. I know trusting someone again feels impossible after what you went through, but I also know that what we had this week was real. It wasn't just loneliness or convenience or rebound, emotions. It was real connection between two people who care about each other." Maya's eyes filled with tears, but she didn't speak. "I'm not asking you to forget your past or pretend getting hurt isn't a possibility. I'm asking you to decide if what we could have together is worth the risk, because I think it is. I think we could be extraordinary together." "Jake," Maya whispered, "what if you're wrong? What if I mess this up like I messed up everything else? Then we'll figure it out together. That's what people who care about each other do." Maya was quiet for a long moment, tears streaming down her face. "I'm so tired of being afraid." "Then stop. Just for tonight, stop being afraid and tell me what you really want." Maya looked at him through her tears. "I want to stop running away from the best thing that's happened to me in years. I want to stop letting fear make my decisions. I want to see what happens when two people are brave enough to try." Jake reached across the small table and took her hands. "Then let's be brave." 6 months later, Maya's sterile apartment had been transformed into a warm, lived-in space filled with art from the museum's gift shop and Jake's photography. She still kept her own place, but spent most nights at Jake's apartment, where they'd learned to build something beautiful together. They'd told Lisa about their relationship over dinner, enduring her triumphant, "I knew it," with good humor. Maya had eventually reconnected with her family on her own terms, setting boundaries about what she would and wouldn't discuss. Jake's work had taken on new creative energy, inspired by Maya's passion for art and her belief in his talent. Maya had settled into her museum job and was already being considered for a promotion, but the best part was the small, daily intimacies they'd built together. Morning coffee had become their sacred time. Cooking dinner together was their favorite way to unwind. And the spare bedroom in Jake's apartment had been converted into a shared art studio, where Maya curated exhibitions and Jake experimented with new design projects. "Do you ever regret taking the risk?" Jake asked one evening as they worked side by side in their studio. Maya looked up from the art book she was reading. Every day I'm grateful I found the courage to stop running away from something good." Jake smiled, remembering the scared woman who'd shown up at his door with one suitcase and a broken heart. That woman had been brave enough to start over once. Thankfully, she'd been brave enough to do it again. Sometimes the most important decision you can make is to stop protecting yourself from love and start protecting the love you found. Maya and Jake had learned that lesson the hard way, but they'd learned it together, and that made all the difference.